There's a lie almost everyone believes. It's so common, people repeat it every single day without ever noticing it's a lie. They wake up, look at the clock, sigh, and say, I just need more time. More time. As if time were hiding from them somewhere. As if out there in the world, successful people had been quietly handed 28 hours in a day while everyone else received only 24. Think about that for a moment. Every billionaire, every world champion, every artist who created something that outlived them, every entrepreneur who built an empire from nothing, every parent who changed the direction of their family's future, every single person who ever turned an ordinary life into an extraordinary one. They all woke up to exactly the same 24 hours you did, not 1 second more, not 1 second less. So if the amount of time is equal, why are the results so different? Because success has never been a problem of time. It has always been a problem of focus. And here's what most people don't understand. Focus isn't simply paying attention. Focus is deciding what deserves your life. Because every minute you give to something is a minute you will never get back. You are, quite literally, trading pieces of your life for whatever you choose to do today. That changes everything, doesn't it? You aren't just scrolling through your phone for an hour. You're exchanging an hour of your life. You aren't just putting off your dream until tomorrow. You're handing away another piece of your future. You aren't just saying, I'll start next Monday. You're allowing another week to disappear forever. Years ago, I knew a man who worked harder than almost anyone I had ever met. He left home before sunrise. He came home after dark. He was exhausted every night, and he complained constantly that he never had enough time to work on the business he dreamed of starting. One evening, I sat with him and asked him one simple question. Walk me through yesterday. He started talking. 45 minutes watching television before work. Another hour scrolling through news and social media on his breaks. Nearly 2 hours watching random videos after dinner because he said he needed to relax. By the time he finished telling me about his day, something became obvious. He didn't have a time problem. He had a focus problem. Every day, without realizing it, he was spending nearly 4 hours feeding distraction while his dream went hungry. Now, don't misunderstand me. Rest is important. Relaxation is necessary. Your mind needs recovery. But there is a real difference between resting with purpose and escaping through distraction. One restores your energy. The other quietly steals your future. Most people don't lose their dreams because someone takes them away. They lose them one distraction at a time. 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there. One more episode, one more video, one more excuse. Until suddenly 5 years have disappeared, and they look in the mirror and ask themselves, what happened? Nothing happened overnight. Everything happened daily. Success rarely arrives in dramatic moments. Failure rarely announces itself loudly either. Both are built quietly, brick by brick, choice by choice, habit by habit. Think about a farmer. Does the harvest appear because he wished for it? No. The harvest begins months before anyone can see it. Seeds are planted beneath the surface. Water is poured. Weeds are removed. The work continues even when there's no visible reward. And then one day, people look at the field and say, what an amazing harvest. They admire what they can see. They never witness the countless quiet days that made it possible. Your future works exactly the same way. People will one day admire your success. They won't see the mornings when you wanted to sleep, but got up anyway. They won't see the evenings when everyone else was wasting time while you were learning a new skill. They won't see the weekends you invested instead of escaped. They will only see the harvest. They'll call you lucky, but you'll know better, because luck had very little to do with it. Focus built it. Let me ask you something that might make you a little uncomfortable. If someone had secretly recorded your last 7 days, not your intentions, not your goals, not your vision board, just your actual actions, would that recording prove your dreams are important to you? Or would it prove that comfort is more important? That's a difficult question, because our calendars never lie. Our screen time never lies. Our habits never lie. Our daily choices reveal our real priorities, not the ones we talk about, the ones we actually live. Here's what I've learned watching successful people over many years. The difference isn't intelligence. I've met brilliant people living small, average lives. The difference isn't talent. I've seen talented people waste gifts that others would have treasured. The difference isn't opportunity. Many people receive incredible opportunities and still accomplish very little. The difference is this. Focused people protect their attention the way others protect their money. Think about your attention as your greatest investment. Where attention goes, energy follows. Where energy flows, results grow. If your attention is scattered across 100 different things every day, your life becomes scattered too. Imagine trying to light a piece of paper using sunlight. On an ordinary day, the sunlight touches everything. It warms the ground. It shines on buildings. It reaches the trees. But nothing catches fire. Now place a magnifying glass over that same sunlight. Suddenly, all that scattered energy gathers into a single point. Within moments, fire. The sun didn't become stronger. Its focus became stronger. You are no different. Your potential isn't missing. Your energy isn't gone. Your dreams haven't disappeared. They're simply scattered across too many unnecessary places. Too many notifications. Too many opinions. Too many arguments. Too many distractions disguised as entertainment. Too many commitments that have nothing to do with the person you're trying to become. You don't need more hours. You need a magnifying glass. You need to gather your energy. You need to decide what deserves your best attention. Because every yes you say to something unimportant becomes a no to something extraordinary. Imagine putting a single dollar into an account every single day. At first, it doesn't seem significant. But over time, it grows. Habits work exactly the same way. Every focused hour is a deposit. Every disciplined morning is a deposit. Every book you finish is a deposit. Every difficult conversation you finally have is a deposit. Every promise you keep to yourself is a deposit. Most people underestimate how powerful small, daily deposits become. They want dramatic change. Life usually offers gradual transformation instead. And gradual transformation is the kind that actually lasts. I remember hearing about a woman who wanted to change her life. She wasn't wealthy. She wasn't famous. She wasn't exceptionally gifted. She worked a regular job. She had children to raise and bills to pay. For years, she kept saying she didn't have time to write the book she dreamed about. One evening, she stopped asking for more time. Instead, she asked a different question. What can I focus on for just 30 minutes every day? Not 3 hours. Not an entire weekend. 30 focused minutes. No phone. No television. No excuses. Every evening after her children went to sleep, she sat at a small table with an old notebook. Some nights she wrote 1 page. Some nights only half a page. Some nights she was so tired she thought about quitting, but she remembered something important. Progress is measured by consistency, not intensity. Months passed, then a year. Eventually, that notebook became a manuscript. That manuscript became a published book. People later asked her, "How did you find the time?" She smiled and said, "I didn't find time. I found focus." Those words carry more wisdom than most people realize, because time is never found. Time is allocated. Focus is chosen. And every single morning, whether you recognize it or not, life places 24 fresh hours into your hands and quietly asks one question. What will you give your attention to today? Most people answer that question by accident. The few who build extraordinary lives answer it on purpose. Every action you take is a vote for the person you're becoming. Every morning you choose to get out of bed instead of hitting snooze, you're casting a vote. Every time you pick up a book instead of your phone, you're casting a vote. Every time you keep a promise to yourself after breaking 10 before, you're casting another one. Eventually, those votes decide the outcome of your life. Not one giant decision, but thousands of tiny ones. Here's what most people get backwards. They believe confidence comes first. They believe motivation comes first. But that's rarely how it actually works. Action comes first. Confidence follows. Think back to when you learned to ride a bicycle. Were you confident before you climbed on? Of course not. You were nervous, uncertain, maybe even a little afraid of falling. Confidence wasn't the reason you rode the bike. Confidence was the reward for getting back on after you fell. The same principle applies to every dream you'll ever chase. People wait until they feel ready. But readiness is usually born from movement, not from waiting. There's a habit that quietly destroys potential. It's asking yourself every morning, do I feel like doing this today? Because the answer changes daily, and so does your future. Successful people ask a different question. What needs to be done? Whether they feel like it or not. Feelings are visitors. Commitment is a resident. Feelings come and go like weather. Some mornings the sky is bright. Some mornings storms roll in. But imagine a pilot refusing to fly simply because clouds appeared. The destination still matters. And your destination has to matter more than today's emotions. I once knew an old craftsman who had spent over 40 years building furniture entirely by hand. His work was extraordinary. Every chair, every table, every cabinet. People traveled from distant towns just to buy something he had made. One day I asked him the secret behind the quality of his work. He smiled, picked up a piece of wood, and ran his hand slowly across its surface. Most people rush, he said, because they're thinking about finishing. I focus because I'm thinking about becoming. Those words stayed with me. Because every project shapes two things, the result and the person creating it. If you rush through life constantly distracted, constantly divided, even if you occasionally reach a goal, who have you become in the process? But when you approach each day with attention, with patience, with discipline, you're not just building success. Success is building you. Character is the foundation beneath every lasting achievement. People admire success, but life rewards character. Because success without character is fragile. Character creates consistency. Consistency creates trust. Trust creates opportunity. And opportunity, eventually, allows you to change lives beyond your own. Think about the people who inspired you most in your life. Was it because they never struggled? No. It was because they remained focused despite their struggles. Life eventually sends every person a season where nothing goes according to plan. The business fails. The relationship ends. The money disappears. The rejection letter comes. The people you trusted walk away. And in those moments, focus becomes more valuable than talent because pain has a voice. It whispers, quit. This isn't worth it. You're too late. Someone else is better. You've already failed. Have you ever noticed that? Pain is an incredible storyteller. It tells convincing stories, stories that sound true, that feel true. But feelings are not facts. One of the greatest skills you'll ever develop is learning not to believe every thought that enters your mind. Just because a thought arrives doesn't mean it deserves a seat at your table. Some thoughts should simply pass by. That's where focus becomes your guardian. Focus says, I know fear is speaking, but I'm listening to purpose. There was a young man who desperately wanted to become a musician. He practiced when he felt inspired. Some weeks, every day. Other weeks, barely at all. Years passed, and he stayed average. Then he met an older musician whose performances moved audiences to tears. He asked him, how do you stay motivated every day? The older musician laughed gently. I stopped depending on motivation 20 years ago, he said. I have a schedule. What an incredible answer, because schedules protect focus. Motivation is wonderful, but motivation is like the wind. Sometimes behind you, sometimes against you, sometimes gone completely. A schedule allows you to keep moving even when the wind disappears. That's why ordinary people so often achieve extraordinary things. Not because they're extraordinary, but because they become reliable. Reliable with their habits, reliable with their word, reliable with their focus. And reliability compounds. Think about water. A single drop seems powerless. But if that drop falls in exactly the same place for years, even stone begins to change. The water isn't stronger than the rock. It's simply more consistent. Your daily habits are shaping your future in exactly the same way. One focused hour may not change your life. 100 focused hours will. 1,000 focused hours certainly will. People dramatically overestimate what they can do in 1 week. They dramatically underestimate what they can become in 5 years of relentless consistency. 5 years sounds like a long time, until 5 years pass, and they always do. The question isn't whether time will move. Time never asks permission. The question is whether your focus will move with it. Think about how many people are exhausted today. Not because they worked too hard, but because they were mentally everywhere. They started one task, checked a notification, answered a message, watched a video, opened another tab. By evening, they felt busy, but they couldn't point to anything truly meaningful they had completed. Busyness has become one of the greatest disguises for a lack of direction. Being busy isn't the same as being productive. A rocking chair moves all day. It never travels anywhere. Sometimes our lives resemble that rocking chair. Constant movement, very little progress. That's why every morning deserves a better question than, what do I have to do today? Ask instead, what matters most today? Not everything deserves equal attention. Some conversations matter. Some don't. Some opportunities deserve your energy. Some only steal it. This is one of the hardest truths you'll ever accept. Every meaningful yes requires dozens of courageous no's. No to distraction. No to comparison. No to habits that comfort you while slowly costing you the life you say you want. Because every no creates space for a greater yes. And that space is where transformation begins to take root. Often so quietly you don't even notice it at first. One morning you realize you're waking up before the alarm without forcing yourself. One afternoon, you notice the work you used to avoid has become part of your identity. And for just a second, you stop and think, when did I change? But the truth is, you didn't change in that moment. You had been changing all along. One focused decision at a time, even on the days when it felt like nothing was happening. A seed does not become a tree because it had one good day. It becomes a tree because it kept growing on days no one was watching. Who are you when no one is applauding? When there's no audience, no likes, no recognition? Because that person, the one no one else sees, is the person creating the future everyone else eventually will. We live in a world that celebrates outcomes. Very few people celebrate preparation. Everyone wants to stand on the stage. Few are willing to spend years practicing in an empty room. People are fascinated by the destination. Life is transformed by the journey. And here's something worth understanding. Your focus is being competed for every single minute, not every day. There are entire industries whose success depends on keeping your attention. Every notification, every headline, every endless scroll. Someone, somewhere, is working very hard to decide what you think about next. If you don't intentionally direct your attention, someone else gladly will. Focus isn't simply a productivity skill anymore. It's an act of personal leadership. The decision to say, I will choose what enters my mind. Because whatever repeatedly enters your mind eventually begins shaping your beliefs. Beliefs shape behavior. Behavior shapes habits. Habits shape character. And character shapes destiny. Everything begins with what consistently receives your attention. I once met a teacher who had spent decades working with young students. I asked her what separates the children who eventually thrive from those who struggle. I expected her to talk about intelligence or family background. Instead, she said, the ones who thrive learn how to stay with difficult things just a little longer. Just a little longer. Those words have stayed with me because quitting usually happens just before growth begins. Think about learning a language. The first weeks are frustrating. Learning an instrument, frustrating. Starting a business, frustrating. Everything valuable asks the same question. Will you continue after the excitement disappears? That's the test. Excitement gets you started. Focus keeps you moving. There's a season in every worthwhile pursuit where nothing seems to happen. You study. Nothing changes. You practice. Nothing changes. At least that's what it feels like. But feelings can be deceptive. Imagine an ice cube sitting in a cold room. The temperature rises slowly. 25 degrees. Nothing changes. 28, 29, 30, 31. Still no visible difference. Then the room reaches 32 degrees, and suddenly the ice begins to melt. Here's the mistake people make. They think the melting happened at 32 degrees. It didn't. It happened because of everything that came before it. Every degree mattered, even when nothing appeared to change. Your life works exactly the same way. The workout you almost skipped mattered. The chapter you almost didn't read mattered. The decision to wake up 30 minutes earlier mattered. Those are your invisible degrees. One day the breakthrough comes. People see the breakthrough. They never see the hundreds of invisible degrees that made it possible. That's why comparison is so dangerous. You're comparing someone's visible moment to your invisible process. You see their success. You don't see their sacrifices. You see the finished building. You never witness the thousands of bricks. Stop comparing your beginning to someone else's middle. Everyone has a different starting point, and everyone carries different burdens. I remember speaking with a young entrepreneur who told me he had failed 3 businesses. He believed those years had been wasted. I asked him to describe what he had learned from each attempt. As he talked, something fascinating happened. He explained how he'd learned to communicate better, manage money, hire carefully, solve problems under pressure. By the time he finished, I smiled and said, "You think you lost businesses? I think you built a person. Sometimes life is developing you before it delivers what you've been asking for. Because if success arrives before you're prepared to carry it, success becomes a burden instead of a blessing. Preparation often looks like delay, but delay isn't always denial. Sometimes delay is training. Think about an archer. Before an arrow moves forward, it must first be pulled backward. If the arrow could speak, it might believe its life was moving in the wrong direction. But the backward pull isn't punishment. It's preparation for forward momentum. Perhaps you've been measuring your life by what isn't happening yet. Instead of asking, "Why am I not there already?" ask, "What is this season trying to teach me?" Because every season has an assignment. Some seasons teach patience. Some teach courage. Some teach you how to begin again after disappointment. And every lesson you embrace becomes part of the foundation beneath your future. There's another trap that quietly steals focus from countless people. The need for perfect conditions. I'll start when life settles down. I'll begin when I have more money. Listen carefully. Perfect conditions are one of the greatest illusions ever invented. Life has never promised ideal circumstances. It has only offered daily opportunities. The person who waits for perfect weather often misses the planting season. The person who plants despite imperfect weather is usually the one harvesting later. Courage isn't moving without fear. Courage is refusing to let fear become your decision maker. And focus gives courage somewhere to look. Instead of staring at every obstacle, focus keeps returning your eyes to the next step, not the next 100, the next one. One page, one call, one workout, one honest conversation. Have you ever noticed how easily the mind creates stories? You miss one day of practice and it whispers, "You've ruined everything." You face one rejection and it tries to convince you every future door will close too. The mind is powerful, but it must be trained. If you leave a garden unattended, weeds don't ask permission before they grow. The same is true of your thinking. Negativity grows naturally. Purpose grows intentionally. That's why every morning, before the world begins making demands on your attention, there's tremendous value in spending a few quiet moments asking yourself one simple question. What kind of person will I practice being today? Not what will I accomplish, but who will I become through the way I live this day? Because when you become the kind of person who values focus over distraction, discipline over impulse, and purpose over convenience, your decisions begin to change almost without effort. You start noticing opportunities that once slipped right past you. You begin protecting your mornings, guarding your evenings, speaking with greater intention. Then one day, someone who hasn't seen you in years looks at your life and says, "You seem different." And they think the difference happened suddenly, never realizing it was being built in hundreds of ordinary moments that most people would have overlooked. There will come a quiet moment, years from now. Maybe you'll be sitting alone in your home. Maybe you'll be watching your children grow. Maybe you'll be looking out a window at the life you've built. And in that moment, you won't be asking yourself how many hours you had. You'll be asking yourself what you did with them. Time has never been the greatest gift. Attention has. Focus has. The courage to choose what truly matters has. Because every sunrise has been handing you a blank page, and every sunset has been asking one question. What story did you write today? Don't wait for a better season. Don't wait for perfect conditions. Don't wait until confidence magically appears. The life you've been dreaming about isn't waiting on another calendar year. It's waiting on another decision. The smallest decision, repeated consistently, becomes the biggest turning point of your life. Never underestimate the quiet power of one disciplined day. One disciplined day becomes a disciplined week. A disciplined week becomes a disciplined month. A disciplined month becomes a disciplined year. And one day, people will look at your life and call it extraordinary. They will see the success. They will never see the thousands of ordinary moments when you chose purpose over comfort, growth over excuses, discipline over distraction, and focus over fear. There are two kinds of pain waiting for every human being: the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. One weighs ounces today. The other weighs tons for a lifetime. Choose carefully, because regret has a voice that grows louder with age. It whispers about the book you never wrote, the business you never started, the dream you abandoned. Don't give regret that story to tell. Instead, become the person who can look back decades from now and say, I didn't let fear decide my future. I didn't let distraction steal my purpose. I showed up. I kept going. I became who I was capable of becoming. Your future isn't being created someday. It's being created today, in the next decision, the next habit, the next promise you keep to yourself. And never forget this: you are far more capable than your doubts would have you believe. There is more strength inside you than you've had to use, more courage than you've been forced to discover, more wisdom than you've been willing to trust. Your greatest chapter hasn't already been written. It's waiting for the moment you stop wishing for a different life and start building one. So when you leave this today, don't carry inspiration alone. Carry commitment. Don't chase motivation. Build focus. Don't ask whether you have enough time. Ask whether you're giving your best attention to what matters most. Stand up tomorrow with a different standard. Guard your focus. Honor your word. Protect your purpose. Keep the promises you make to yourself, especially when no one is watching, because that is where destiny quietly changes.